If sarcasm burned calories, I'd be skinny as my wife's patience for me. It's 2 a.m, and I'm sitting in our kitchen nursing cold coffee while Aven Bardell, she kept her maiden name for professional reasons, sneaks through the front door like a teenager missing curfew. Business dinner ran late, she announces, not bothering to look at me as she kicks off her heels. The sound echoes through our suburban Dallas home like gunshots. That perfume is new, I say, not looking up from my mug. Too bad the lies aren't. Aven freezes in the doorway, her corporate armor still intact despite the hour. She's 32, ambitious as a politician, and currently climbing the ladder at TechFlow Solutions like her life depends on it. Maybe it does. Maybe mine does too. Excuse me? Her voice carries that particular chill she reserves for underperforming employees and disappointing husbands. The perfume, Aven. It's not the one I bought you for Christmas. This one's more expensive, more grateful. She laughs, but it's the sound a snake might make if snakes could express contempt. You're paranoid, Kellan, and pathetic. Kellan Brooks, that's me, 38 years old, former high school history teacher turned investigative consultant. I help lawyers dig up dirt on insurance fraud cases mostly. It pays the bills, barely, which Aven never lets me forget. Maybe I am paranoid, I admit, finally meeting her eyes. They're blue as winter sky and twice as cold. But I'm not stupid. Could have fooled me. She opens the refrigerator, grabs a bottle of water, and leans against the counter like she's posing for a magazine spread. Everything Aven does looks calculated, practiced. Speaking of stupid, I saw the bills today. Your little consulting business isn't exactly booming, is it? Here we go. The monthly financial review conducted with all the warmth of an IRS audit. We're doing fine, I say. Fine? She laughs again. Kellan, fine doesn't cover the mortgage on this house. Fine doesn't pay for my car. Fine doesn't maintain the lifestyle I've worked my rear end off to build. I set down my coffee mug carefully. Very carefully. Your lifestyle? That's right, my lifestyle. Because let's be honest here. If it weren't for my salary, we'd be living in some apartment complex with paper-thin walls and neighbors who collect disability checks. The words hang in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. I should be angry. 6 months ago, I would have been angry. Now I just feel tired. You know what, Aven? You're absolutely right. She blinks, clearly expecting a fight. What? You're right. I can't compete with your success. I'm just a small-time investigator who helps lawyers with their cases. I'm not climbing any corporate ladders. I'm not networking at expensive restaurants or taking business trips to Austin and Houston. Finally, some honesty. She sounds almost relieved. So here's some more honesty. I stand up, walk to the sink, and rinse out my mug. I know about Derek. The silence that follows is so complete I can hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking on the wall, the sound of Aven's world starting to crack. I don't know what you're talking about, she says, but her voice has lost its edge. Derek Rains, innovation consultant, drives a white Tesla Model S, lives in those fancy apartments downtown, the ones with the doorman and the rooftop pool. Aven's face has gone pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. How do I know? I turn around, leaning against the sink. I'm an investigator, remember? It's what I do. Find things people want to keep hidden. She recovers quickly. I'll give her that. The corporate mask slides back into place. So what? So what if I know Derek? He's a business contact. We work on projects together. Is that what you call it? That's exactly what I call it. She steps closer, and now I can smell that expensive perfume mixed with wine and something else. Guilt, maybe. And even if it were something more, what exactly do you plan to do about it? File for divorce? Take me to court? Here it comes, the moment I've been waiting for. You can't afford a good lawyer anyway, she continues, her confidence building with each word. What are you going to do? Represent yourself? Go up against my firm's legal team with some public defender? I smile. Actually smile. It feels good. Who said I was paying? Before she can ask what I mean, footsteps echo from the front hallway. Heavy, confident footsteps that stop just outside the kitchen doorway. Sorry I'm late, a familiar voice calls out. Traffic was terrible. Felix Roard walks into our kitchen like he owns it, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing a suit that costs more than my car. He's 42, balding, and looks like an accountant who spends his weekends playing fantasy football. Aven stares at him like he's grown a second head. Felix? What are you doing here? It's 2 a.m. Business meeting, Felix says, setting his briefcase on our kitchen table. Hope you don't mind me using your kitchen, Aven. I know how much you value your professional space. She looks back and forth between us, confusion replacing confidence. I don't understand. Felix, you're Kellan's college friend. You work in... What do you do again? Felix opens his briefcase and pulls out a thick manila folder. I'm a lawyer. Right, I know that. But you're not a divorce lawyer. You do corporate stuff, right? Contracts and things? Actually, Felix says, settling into one of our kitchen chairs like he's taking his place at a boardroom table, I specialize in family law, divorce specifically, asset division, custody arrangements, that sort of thing. The color drains from Aven's face completely now. Family law? Roard, Martinez, and Associates, Felix continues conversationally. Maybe you've heard of us. We handled the Pemberton divorce last year and the Richardson case. Oh, and that tech executive's wife? What was her name, Kellan? The one who tried to hide assets in offshore accounts? Jennifer Walsh, I supply helpfully. That's right, Jennifer Walsh. Nasty business, that one. Fraud charges, asset forfeiture, the works. Felix looks up at Aven with mild interest. You work in tech too, don't you, Aven? She's gripping the edge of the counter now, knuckles white against the granite. Felix, I had no idea you were... I mean, when you come over for football games, you never mentioned... Professional discretion, Felix says. Besides, Kellan never needed my services before. We were just old friends catching up, talking about college, reminiscing about old times. Old times, I repeat. Like when you had leukemia senior year. Aven's eyes dart between us, clearly trying to follow a conversation that's moving too fast for her. Terrible time, Felix agrees. Thought I was going to have to drop out, maybe not make it to graduation, but then Kellan here did something extraordinary. It wasn't extraordinary, I say. It was just the right thing to do. Bone marrow donation, Felix explains to Aven, who's looking more confused by the second. Perfect match. Saved my life. Doctor said without it, I had maybe 6 months? I never knew that, Aven whispers. Why would you? Felix asks. It's not exactly cocktail party conversation, but I've never forgotten it. 20 years I've been waiting for a chance to return the favor. 20 years wondering how I could possibly repay a debt like that. He opens the manila folder and spreads several documents across our kitchen table. Turns out, I can. Aven takes a step forward, then stops. What is that? Your life, Felix says simply. Your real life. The one you thought nobody was watching. The first document is a bank statement. Aven's eyes widen as she recognizes the account number. That's a brokerage account you opened 8 months ago, Felix explains. The one you didn't mention on your tax returns. The one you've been funding with cash withdrawals from your checking account. That's not illegal, Aven says, but her voice is shaking now. No, it's not. But this is interesting. Felix slides another document across the table. Derek Rains, Innovation Consulting, LLC, received $47,000 in consulting fees from TechFlow Solutions over the past 6 months, fees that you approved as a middle manager. Aven's mouth opens, then closes. No sound comes out. Now, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation, Felix continues. I'm sure Derek provided valuable consulting services to justify nearly $50,000 in payments. Services that were properly documented, properly reviewed, properly authorized by your supervisors. He looks up at her expectantly. Of course they were, she manages. Good. Then you won't mind when we subpoena those records, along with Derek's work product, and his communications with your company and his communications with you. Felix pulls out his phone and scrolls through it casually. Speaking of communications, this is interesting. Cloud backup services are wonderful, aren't they? So convenient, so automatic, so comprehensive. He starts reading from his phone. Text message sent last Tuesday at 2:47 p.m. Can't wait to see you tonight. Kay is working late again, the loser. End message. Aven sinks into a chair like her legs have given out. Oh, here's another one. Just approved another payment to your LLC. You owe me dinner at that place downtown. That would be Romano's, I assume. Expensive place. Great wine list. Stop, Aven whispers. Text message from Derek to you, sent Friday afternoon. Your husband called asking questions about my business. Should I be worried? Your response, don't worry about Kellan. He's harmless. Besides, even if he figured something out, he couldn't afford to do anything about it. Felix sets down his phone and looks at her with something that might be pity. That last part really bothered me, Aven. The assumption that Kellan couldn't afford justice. That money determines who gets to fight back and who has to just take it. He closes the folder and slides it back into his briefcase. I've been practicing law for 18 years. I've built a firm that handles some of the biggest divorce cases in Texas. I've never lost a case where the facts were on my side, and I've never, not once, charged Kellan Brooks a single penny for anything. Aven is staring at the table now, her corporate confidence completely shattered. So here's what's going to happen, Felix continues. Tomorrow morning, you're going to receive divorce papers, properly filed, properly served. Your company is going to receive a subpoena for all records related to payments to Derek Rains. Derek is going to receive a subpoena for all records related to his consulting business and his relationship with you. He stands up, straightening his tie. Your corporate legal team is going to recommend that you settle quickly and quietly before this becomes a public scandal that reflects poorly on TechFlow Solutions. They're going to suggest that fighting this could result in criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and misuse of corporate funds. You can't prove anything, Aven says, but there's no fight left in her voice. I don't have to prove anything, Felix replies. I just have to create reasonable doubt about your character, your honesty, and your financial integrity. I just have to show a judge that you've been living a double life, stealing from your employer to fund your affair, and lying to everyone about it. He picks up his briefcase and heads for the door. Oh, and Aven, you might want to call Derek. Let him know that his consulting business is about to get very, very complicated. After Felix leaves, Aven and I sit in silence for a long time. The kitchen clock ticks away the minutes, marking the end of our marriage and the beginning of something else entirely. Finally, she looks up at me. How long have you known? About Derek? 3 months? About the money? Felix figured that out last week. Why didn't you say anything sooner? I consider the question. It's fair, I suppose. Because I wanted to be sure, and because I wanted to do this right. No screaming matches, no dramatic confrontations, just facts, just consequences. She nods slowly. What happens now? Now you call Derek and explain that your husband isn't as harmless as you thought. Now you call your boss and figure out how to explain those consulting payments. Now you call your own lawyer and hope they're better than Felix. I stand up and rinse out my coffee mug one more time. And now I go to bed, in the guest room, because this is still my house, at least until the divorce is final. As I head toward the stairs, Aven calls after me. Kellan? I turn around. I'm sorry. For a moment, just a moment, she looks like the woman I married. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. I know you are, I say. But sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't undo the lies or give back the money or erase the messages. I pause at the bottom of the stairs. Sorry is what you say when you accidentally break something. This wasn't an accident, Aven. This was a choice. A lot of choices. That was the last night I slept as a husband. The next morning I woke up as her reckoning. The next morning arrives gray and humid. Typical for Dallas in September. I'm in the kitchen making coffee when Aven comes downstairs, already dressed for work in her armor of choice. Navy blue suit, matching heels, briefcase that costs more than most people's monthly rent. She looks like she hasn't slept. Good. We need to talk, she says, setting her briefcase on the counter. I thought we covered everything last night. Kellan, please, let's be reasonable about this. We're both adults. We can work something out. I pour coffee into 2 mugs, slide one across the counter to her. It's a peace offering, or maybe just habit. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. What kind of something? She takes a sip, makes a face. I've always made terrible coffee, according to her. Another item on the long list of my domestic failures. A quiet divorce. No lawyers, no court battles, no public drama. We split things fairly and move on with our lives. Fairly. I taste the word like it's wine that might have turned. Define fairly. 50-50. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. Clean break, no hard feelings. I almost laugh. Almost. And Derek? Her face tightens. Derek has nothing to do with this. The $47,000 says otherwise. That was legitimate business consulting. For a company that doesn't need innovation consulting. From a man whose only qualification is knowing which wine goes with betrayal. Aven sets down her mug harder than necessary. Coffee sloshes onto the granite countertop. Fine. You want to do this the hard way? You want to drag our private business through the courts? Go ahead. But remember what I said about affording a good lawyer. I remember. I also remember what happened about 4 hours later. Her phone buzzes. She glances at it, frowns, then looks at me with something approaching panic. What did you do? Nothing. Yet. The phone buzzes again. Then again. By the time she's read the 3rd message, her face has gone pale. Derek's panicking, she says. Someone called his apartment complex asking questions about his lease. Someone else called his business references. Huh. Weird. this was you. Actually, that was Tony. My brother-in-law, remember? The ex-cop who works private investigation now? Turns out he's very thorough when he's motivated. Aven's phone rings. She looks at the caller ID, then at me. It's my boss. Better answer it. She swipes to accept the call, puts it on speaker without thinking. Old habit from her corporate life, where everything is transparent and efficient and professional. Aven, it's Margaret. I need you in my office first thing this morning. We've received some inquiries about consulting payments to a Derek Rains. Do you know anything about this? Aven's eyes meet mine across the kitchen. I can see her calculating, trying to figure out how much trouble she's in and how much she can minimize by being proactive. I approved those payments, she says carefully. Derek provided innovation consulting services for the Morrison Project. What Morrison Project? Silence. Long, terrible silence. The Client Development Initiative. We discussed expanding our service offerings to include innovation consulting. Aven, I have no record of any Morrison project. I have no record of any authorization for innovation consulting. And I have no record of any work product from Derek Rains despite nearly $50,000 in payments. More silence. I sip my coffee and watch my wife's career implode in real time. I can explain everything, Aven says. There might be some confusion about the documentation, but I can provide all the necessary records. You'd better, because if you can't, this looks like fraud, and fraud involving company funds is a termination offense. The call ends. Aven stares at her phone like it might offer some escape route from the hole she's dug. You planned this, she says. I documented it. There's a difference. You're trying to destroy my life. I'm trying to save mine. She grabs her briefcase and heads for the door, then stops and turns around. This isn't over, Kellan. You think you're so smart, you and your lawyer friend, but I know things too. I know about your consulting business, about some of the corners you've cut. I know about the cash payments you've taken. I know about the taxes you haven't reported. Now it's my turn to smile. You mean the cash payments I reported as miscellaneous income? The ones I have receipts for? The ones I pay quarterly taxes on? Her confidence falters. Or maybe you mean the consulting work I do for Felix's firm. The work that's fully documented, properly contracted, and completely legitimate? You work for Felix? Have been for 3 years. Why do you think I always know so much about divorce cases? Why do you think I'm so good at finding hidden assets and secret accounts? The truth hits her like a physical blow. She actually staggers. You've been investigating me for 3 years. Not investigating, just paying attention, taking notes, being thorough. You manipulative piece of... Careful, I interrupt. Your corporate professionalism is showing. After she leaves, I call Tony. How'd it go? He asks. Better than expected. She's rattled. Her boss is asking questions. Derek's probably changing his pants right about now. Good. Felix wants to meet this afternoon. Says he has some updates on the financial stuff. What kind of updates? The kind that make divorce lawyers very happy and cheating wives very nervous. I spend the rest of the morning cleaning the house, not because it needs it, but because I need something to do with my hands while my mind processes what's happening. 20 years of marriage, ending not with a bang, but with a series of carefully documented revelations. The irony isn't lost on me. Aven always said I was too detail-oriented, too focused on small things that didn't matter. Turns out those small things add up. Bank statements, credit card records, phone bills, text messages, emails, GPS data from her car, location services from her phone. The digital breadcrumbs of a double life. Felix arrives at noon carrying Chinese takeout and a thick folder. Hungry? He asks, setting containers on the kitchen table. Not really, but I should eat something. We sit across from each other, the same spots we occupied last night when my marriage officially ended. Felix opens containers of lo mein and sweet and sour chicken while I try to work up an appetite. How are you holding up? He asks. I'm fine. That's what everyone says. Doesn't make it true. I pick at the lo mein with plastic chopsticks. I keep waiting to feel something. Anger, sadness, relief, something. But mostly I just feel tired. That's normal. Grief has its own timeline. This isn't grief. This is just finishing something that was already over. Felix nods like he understands. Maybe he does. He's been through enough divorces to recognize the stages. Want to see what we're working with? He opens the folder and spreads documents across the table like he's dealing cards. The first document is a financial analysis. Numbers, charts, account summaries. It looks like something you'd present to a corporate board. Aven's been busy, Felix says. The brokerage account is just the beginning. She's got a savings account at a different bank, a credit card you don't know about, and she's been skimming cash from her expense account. How much? Total? About $87,000 over 18 months. I set down my chopsticks. Suddenly, the lo mein tastes like cardboard. 87,000. Most of it went to Derek. Rent payments, car payments, credit card payments, cash transfers. She's been funding his entire lifestyle. With her company's money. Some of it. The consulting fees were company money. The rest was her salary, but she was using false expense reports to inflate her income. Fake business meals, fake travel expenses, fake conference fees. Felix slides another document across the table. It's a timeline, color-coded and cross-referenced. This shows the correlation between her cash withdrawals and Derek's deposits. Almost perfect match. She'd take money out of your joint account or her company account, then Derek would make a deposit the same day. You think she was giving him cash? I think she was paying his bills directly. Look at this. He points to a series of entries highlighted in yellow. Derek's rent is $2,400 a month. Every month, on the same day his rent is due, Aven makes a cash withdrawal for exactly $2,400. His car payment? $537. Aven withdraws $540 every month, 3 days before Derek's payment is due. I stare at the timeline, trying to process what I'm seeing. It's not just an affair, it's a complete financial takeover. She was keeping him, I say, like a pet, a very expensive pet. What about his consulting business? Is that even real? Felix explains that Derek Rain's Innovation Consulting LLC is a shell. No employees, no office, no business activity. Just a bank account used to funnel money from tech flow to Derek. Felony fraud. Wire fraud if transfers were electronic. Conspiracy if Aven helped set it up. Criminal exposure is serious. Embezzlement, tax violations, and fraud charges for Derek. Felix is confident about the divorce. The petition is already filed. Adultery, financial misconduct, breach of fiduciary duty. We're seeking the house, full retirement accounts, alimony, and attorney fees. Aven will pay for both sides. She'll be served at work. Public service means public pressure. Corporate environments punish scandal fast. Felix adds one more detail. Tony saw Aven arrive at Derek's apartment with a suitcase. Either way, cohabitation makes the adultery easy to prove. After Felix leaves, I sit alone, trying to process 20 years of marriage reduced to spreadsheets and evidence. Then my phone buzzes. We need to talk. Derek, I reply. No, we don't. He calls. I let it go to voicemail and call Tony. Derek keeps calling again and again. Tony tells me not to answer. Desperate people make mistakes. By the time Derek stops, I have 7 voicemails documenting his knowledge of the fraud, the affair, and his panic. Evidence gift-wrapped. I pour a good whiskey and toast my empty kitchen. Then a car pulls into the driveway. Aven steps out of her BMW. Fast, angry, round 2. Aven lets herself in with her key and storms inside, furious. She was served at work during a board presentation. Security suspended her, revoked her access, and walked her out. I stay calm, whiskey in hand. I ask if she's a criminal. She tries to defend the consulting payments. I dismantle it. Derek's LLC is a shell, unlicensed, untaxed, created to funnel money. She collapses onto the couch. I tell her when I knew and why I waited. Documentation, certainty, leverage. She asks what happens next. I explain that Felix represents me and TechFlow. His firm was already on retainer. The fraud investigation is moving forward with everything Felix uncovered. Payment timelines, fake business records, and the money trail linking her to Derek. She panics, says she's going to prison. I tell her cooperation and restitution will likely mean probation. Derek won't be as lucky. Fraud, false tax filings, and no legal protection. My phone buzzes. Derek is outside. I tell her he's not being arrested by me. The district attorney will handle that once TechFlow files its complaint. Probably tomorrow. Aven looks out the window. Derek steps out of his Tesla, frantic and unraveling. Round 2 is about to begin. He wants to run, Aven says. He thinks we should take the money and disappear. What money? The money in my brokerage account. The cash I've been saving. He thinks we can go to Mexico or somewhere without extradition treaties. I laugh. Actually laugh. Aven, you can't run from wire fraud. The FBI has jurisdiction anywhere you go. And Mexico absolutely has extradition treaties with the United States. I told him that. What did he say? He said you were bluffing. He said you don't have enough evidence to prove anything. He said we could make this all go away if we just stick together and keep our stories straight. Derek is walking up the driveway now, moving fast and determined. He's wearing jeans and a polo shirt. Casual clothes that make him look younger and less sophisticated than his usual business attire. He's coming to the door, I observe. Don't let him in. Why not? This should be interesting. The doorbell rings, then rings again. Then Derek starts pounding on the door. Kellan, open up. We need to talk. I finish my whiskey and set the glass on the coffee table. Stay here, I tell Aven. This won't take long. I open the front door. Derek is standing on my porch, sweating despite the evening coolness, his face flushed with anger or fear or both. Derek, I say pleasantly. What a surprise. Cut the act, Kellan. You know why I'm here. Actually, I don't. Why don't you enlighten me? He pushes past me into the house, uninvited and unwelcome. I could stop him, but I'm curious to see how far he'll take this. You're trying to destroy us, he says, spotting Aven in the living room. Both of us. For what? Revenge? Jealousy? Justice, I say, closing the door behind him. The word you're looking for is justice. Justice? Derek laughs, but it sounds forced. You want to talk about justice? How about 18 years of marriage to a woman who is miserable? How about forcing her to live in this suburban prison while you played detective and made barely enough money to cover the mortgage? Derek, Aven says quietly. Don't. No, I'm tired of tiptoeing around his feelings. Aven deserves better than this. She deserves someone who appreciates her ambition, her intelligence, her drive. Her embezzlement skills? I ask. Those payments were legitimate business consulting. For what business? Innovation consulting. Strategic development. Market analysis. Show me the work product. Derek blinks. What? The work product. The reports, the analyses, the strategic recommendations. Show me what TechFlow got for their $47,000. Silence. Or show me Derek Rain's Innovation Consulting's business license, or tax returns, or client list, or office lease. More silence. You can't, because none of it exists. Because Derek Rain's Innovation Consulting is a fake company created to launder money from TechFlow to your personal account. You can't prove that. I pull out my phone and scroll to the photos Tony took yesterday. Actually, I can. These are pictures of Derek's apartment lease application. Notice he lists his occupation as unemployed and his income source as family support. That was filed 6 months ago, 2 months before his consulting company was supposedly created. Derek's face goes pale. These are pictures of his car loan application. Same thing. No mention of any consulting business, no business income, no self-employment. Those are private documents. You can't use those. Public records, actually. Tony used to be a cop, remember? He knows which documents are available through official channels. I scroll to another set of photos. These are Derek's tax returns for the past 3 years. No business income, no self-employment, no consulting revenue, filed as a single individual with minimal wage income from part-time retail jobs. Stop, Aven says from the living room. Just stop. But Derek isn't ready to give up. Fine, he says. Maybe the consulting thing was creative, but that doesn't change the fact that Aven deserves better than you. It doesn't change the fact that she's been unhappy for years. You're right, I say. She does deserve better. She deserves someone who doesn't steal from her employer to pay his rent. She deserves someone who doesn't create fake businesses to launder money. She deserves someone who doesn't turn her into an accessory to fraud. I never asked her to. To what? To steal money for you? To lie to her boss? To risk her career and her freedom so you could play entrepreneur without actually starting a business? Derek looks back and forth between me and Aven, clearly realizing that this conversation isn't going the way he planned. Aven, he says, tell him. Tell him how unhappy you've been. Tell him how we fell in love. Tell him this isn't just about money. Aven doesn't respond. She's staring out the window, lost in thought or regret or calculation. Aven, go home, Derek. What? Go home. Pack your things. Find a lawyer. Turn yourself in before they come looking for you. I'm not turning myself in. We can fight this. We can what? She turns around, and I'm surprised to see tears in her eyes. Run away to Mexico? Live as fugitives? Spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders? It's better than prison. It's not better than anything. It's just different kinds of misery. Derek stares at her like she's speaking a foreign language. You're giving up? I'm facing reality, something you've never been very good at. Reality? The reality is that your husband set us up. He planned this whole thing. He manipulated us into what? Aven's voice is sharp now, cutting. Into stealing money? Into creating fake businesses? Into lying to everyone we know? Into falling in love. The words hang in the air like smoke. Aven looks at Derek for a long moment, then shakes her head. Love doesn't steal, Derek. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't risk everything for designer clothes and expensive dinners. So that's it? You're just going to let him destroy us? He didn't destroy us. We destroyed us. We destroyed ourselves. Derek looks around the room like he's searching for an escape route or a weapon or a miracle. Finding none, he heads for the door. This isn't over, he says to me. Yes, it is. You think you're so smart. You think you've won. But Aven's right about one thing. You are a loser. You're a small-time detective who couldn't keep his own wife happy. Even if you win the divorce, even if you get the house and the money, you're still going to be alone. You're still going to be the guy who wasn't enough. He slams the door behind him. Aven and I sit in silence for a while, listening to Derek's car start up and drive away. He's not wrong, she says finally. About what? About you being alone. About this house being empty. About winning the divorce but losing everything else. I consider this. Maybe, but I'd rather be alone and honest than together and living a lie. Is that what we were doing? Living a lie? Weren't we? She doesn't answer immediately. When she does, her voice is quiet, thoughtful. I don't know when it started. The lying, I mean. It wasn't all at once. It was little things at first. Staying late at work when I didn't have to, having drinks with Derek and calling it a business meeting, taking cash from the joint account and telling myself I'd pay it back. When did it become about the money? When Derek's lease was up and he couldn't afford a new place, when his car got repossessed and he needed help with payments, when he started talking about starting his own business but didn't have any capital. So you created capital for him. I created opportunities. The consulting payments were supposed to be temporary, just until he got established. $47,000 temporary. I know how it looks. It looks like embezzlement, because that's what it is. Aven stands up and walks to the kitchen. I hear her opening cabinets, running water, the familiar sounds of her making tea, domestic sounds that seem strange now, given the circumstances. Can I ask you something? She calls from the kitchen. Sure. When you donated bone marrow to Felix, did you know he was going to become a lawyer? No. He was pre-med then. Wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. So you saved his life not knowing he'd be able to save yours 20 years later. I didn't save his life. The doctors saved his life. I just provided raw materials. She comes back with 2 cups of tea, hands me one. It's good tea, expensive tea, the kind she buys for special occasions. Do you believe in karma? She asks. I believe in consequences. Same thing, maybe. We drink our tea in silence. Outside, the neighborhood is settling into evening routines. Porch lights coming on, families gathering for dinner, the normal rhythms of suburban life. What happens tomorrow? Aven asks. Tomorrow you hire a lawyer. A good one, not someone from your company's legal department, someone who specializes in white-collar criminal defense. And after that? After that, you cooperate fully with the investigation. You provide all documents, all records, all communications. You make full restitution to TechFlow. You plead guilty to whatever charges they file and hope for probation. And Derek? Derek makes his own choices, but if I were him, I'd be calling a lawyer tonight and a bail bondsman tomorrow. Aven finishes her tea and sets the cup on the coffee table. I should go, she says. Where? Hotel, I guess. Derek's place isn't safe anymore. Too many people watching. You could stay here tonight? Guest room? She looks at me with surprise. Why would you offer that? Because despite everything, I don't want you sleeping in your car or some sketchy motel. Because 20 years of marriage has to count for something, even if it's just basic human decency. The prosecutors won't like it. It might look like we're colluding. Let me worry about that. She considers the offer, then shakes her head. Thank you, but no. I need to start learning how to take care of myself. After she leaves, I sit in my empty house and try to process what just happened. My wife confessed to embezzlement, her lover threatened me in my own living room, and I offered her a place to stay despite everything. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe I am a loser. But if being a loser means sleeping peacefully while criminals lie awake worrying about prison sentences, I can live with that. My phone buzzes. Text message from Felix. How did it go? I type back. Better than expected. She's ready to cooperate. Good. Court date is set for next week. Preliminary hearing on the criminal charges is the week after. That fast? White-collar cases move quickly when the evidence is clear and the defendant is cooperative. Plus, TechFlow wants this resolved before it hits the news. I pour myself another whiskey and toast my empty living room. Here's to consequences, I say to no one. Tomorrow, the real work begins. The courthouse steps are crowded with lawyers, defendants, and family members when Felix and I arrive Tuesday morning. It's one of those perfect Texas fall days, crisp and clear, the kind of weather that makes you forget how miserable the summers are. Felix looks like he was born to walk these steps. Confident, professional, carrying his briefcase like it contains the secrets of the universe. Maybe it does. "Ready?" he asks as we approach the main entrance. As ready as anyone can be for their marriage to officially end. "This is just the preliminary hearing. The real divorce proceedings won't start for another month." "What's the difference?" "Today we establish grounds and set temporary support arrangements. Next month we divide assets and make everything permanent." Inside, the courthouse is all marble and echoes, designed to make everyone feel small and insignificant. We take the elevator to the third floor, family court division, and find our assigned courtroom. Aven is already there, sitting at a table with a lawyer I don't recognize. She's wearing a conservative black suit, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looks like someone trying very hard to appear respectable and remorseful. Her lawyer is a woman in her 50s, gray-haired and serious-looking. She has the demeanor of someone who's handled a lot of messy divorces and doesn't have illusions about human nature. "That's Patricia Hendricks," Felix tells me as we take our seats. "Good choice. She's expensive, but she's competent. Specializes in cases where one spouse has committed financial crimes." "Is that a common specialization?" "More common than you'd think." The judge enters, and everyone stands. Judge Margaret Chen, according to the nameplate on her desk. She's younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with the no-nonsense air of someone who's seen every possible variation of human stupidity. "Be seated," she says, settling into her chair and opening a thick file. Case number 2023-47291, Brooks versus Bardell. Petition for dissolution of marriage. She looks up at both tables. "I've reviewed the preliminary filings, and I have to say, this is one of the more interesting cases I've seen this year. Mr. Brooks, your petition alleges adultery, financial misconduct, and breach of fiduciary duty. Those are serious accusations." Felix stands. "Your Honor, we're prepared to present evidence supporting all three allegations." "I'm sure you are. Ms. Hendricks, how does your client respond to these allegations?" Aven's lawyer stands. "Your Honor, Ms. Bardell acknowledges that the marriage has irretrievably broken down. However, we dispute the characterization of her conduct as financial misconduct or breach of fiduciary duty." "But not the adultery allegation?" A pause. "No, Your Honor. We acknowledge that Ms. Bardell had a relationship outside the marriage." Judge Chen makes a note in her file. "Very well, Mr. Roared, present your evidence." Felix opens his briefcase and pulls out the same folder he's been carrying for days. But now it's thicker, more organized, with colored tabs and cross-references. "Your Honor, we have documented evidence of financial misconduct spanning 18 months. The defendant systematically diverted marital assets and corporate funds to support her paramour, Derek Raines." He slides a document across to the judge's clerk, who hands it up to Judge Chen. This timeline shows the correlation between cash withdrawals from joint marital accounts and deposits into accounts controlled by Mr. Raines. The pattern is consistent and deliberate. Judge Chen studies the timeline, her expression growing more serious. "These are substantial amounts, Mr. Roard. Are we talking about a few $100s or something more significant?" "More significant, Your Honor. Approximately $87,000 over 18 months. $87,000. The judge looks at Aven, who's staring at the table. "Ms. Bardell, do you dispute these figures?" Aven's lawyer whispers something to her, then stands. "Your Honor, we acknowledge that Ms. Bardell provided financial support to Mr. Raines during their relationship. However, this was done with her own earned income, not with marital assets." "Except for the joint accounts," Felix interjects, "and the corporate funds that were fraudulently obtained through fake consulting payments." Judge Chen holds up a hand. "Mr. Roard, you mentioned corporate funds. Is there a separate criminal case pending?" "Yes, Your Honor. The district attorney's office is pursuing fraud charges related to approximately $47,000 in false consulting payments." "And Ms. Bardell's involvement in those charges?" "She's cooperating with the investigation and has agreed to make full restitution." The judge makes another note. "Ms. Hendricks, does your client intend to plead guilty to the criminal charges?" "We're still in negotiations with the prosecutor's office, Your Honor." "I see. Well, that's not my concern today. My concern is the division of marital assets and the establishment of temporary support." Felix pulls out another document. "Your Honor, given the defendant's financial misconduct, we're requesting that Mr. Brooks receive the marital home, all retirement accounts, and temporary alimony pending final resolution. Temporary alimony? From the wife to the husband? Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Bardell has a substantially higher income than Mr. Brooks, and her misconduct has created financial hardship for him. Judge Chen looks at Aven's lawyer. Ms. Hendricks, what's your position on these requests? Your Honor, Ms. Bardell has been suspended from her employment pending the criminal investigation. She has no current income and limited ability to pay support of any kind. But she does have assets, Felix says, including the brokerage account containing funds that should have been marital property. How much is in this brokerage account? Judge Chen asks. Felix consults his notes. Approximately $34,000, Your Honor. And this represents marital funds that were diverted? Yes, Your Honor. Funds that should have been used for household expenses, mortgage payments, and joint financial planning. Judge Chen closes the file and looks at both parties. This is a complex case with both civil and criminal implications. However, my job today is to establish temporary arrangements that protect both parties' interests while ensuring that marital assets are preserved. She opens her laptop and starts typing. Temporary order as follows. Mr. Brooks shall have exclusive use and occupancy of the marital home. Ms. Bardell shall have supervised access to retrieve personal belongings. All joint financial accounts are frozen pending final resolution. Ms. Bardell shall transfer the contents of the brokerage account into court escrow within 10 days. Aven's lawyer starts to object, but Judge Chen continues. Furthermore, given the allegations of financial misconduct, Ms. Bardell is enjoined from disposing of any assets, opening new accounts, or making any financial transactions exceeding $500 without court approval. Your Honor, Ms. Hendricks says, that will make it very difficult for Ms. Bardell to pay for basic living expenses. Ms. Bardell should have considered that before allegedly embezzling $87,000. The court will review these arrangements at the final hearing in 30 days. She bangs her gavel. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Felix and I walk down the steps in silence. The morning crowd has thinned out, leaving mostly lawyers and court personnel hurrying between buildings. How do you feel? Felix asks. Weird. Like I should be celebrating, but I just feel empty. That's normal. Divorce is a process of dismantling a life you built with someone. Even when it's necessary, it's not pleasant. What happens next? Next, Aven's criminal lawyer tries to negotiate a plea deal. Next, her divorce lawyer tries to minimize the financial damage. Next, you start figuring out what your life looks like as a single man. We reach Felix's car, a black BMW that screams successful attorney. Felix, I say as he unlocks the doors. Thank you. For everything. I know this was more than just repaying an old debt. He pauses, key in hand. 20 years ago, you saved my life without knowing who I'd become or what I'd be able to do for you. You did it because it was the right thing to do. And today I saved your life without expecting anything in return. I did it because it was the right thing to do. He gets in the car, then rolls down the window. Besides, he says with a grin, destroying financial fraudsters is what I live for. This was the most fun I've had in months. After Felix drives away, I walk back to my car and sit in the parking garage for a while, trying to process what just happened. 20 years of marriage officially ended in less than an hour. $87,000 of theft, reduced to a line item in a court order. A relationship that once meant everything, now just a case number in the family court system. My phone buzzes. Text message from Tony. How did it go? I type back. Better than expected. Aven's broke and homeless. Derek's probably in handcuffs by now. Good. Want to grab lunch and celebrate? I consider the offer. Lunch with my brother-in-law, talking about my wife's downfall over burgers and beer. It should feel like victory. It should feel like justice. Instead, it just feels like the end of something that should have been better. Rain check, I type back. I need to go home and figure out what comes next. The house feels different when I walk in. Not just empty. It's been empty plenty of times when Aven was traveling for work. This feels permanent. Final. Like the last echo of a conversation that's already over. I pour myself a drink and sit in the living room, looking at the furniture we picked out together, the pictures on the walls from vacations we took, the accumulated debris of 2 decades of shared life. Tomorrow I'll start the process of dividing it all up. Tomorrow I'll figure out what belongs to me and what belongs to her and what belongs to the life we're not going to have anymore. But today, I'm just going to sit here and drink good whiskey and remember what it felt like to be married to someone I thought I knew. My phone rings. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Brooks? This is Detective Martinez with the Dallas Police Department. We have Derek Raines in custody on fraud charges. He's asking to speak with you. Why would he want to speak with me? He says he has information about your wife's involvement in the fraud. information that might be helpful to your divorce case. I think about this. Derek, sitting in a jail cell, probably realizing that Aven isn't going to bail him out, or hire him a lawyer, or stand by him through a criminal trial. Tell him I said no thanks. I have all the information I need. Are you sure? He seems pretty desperate to make a deal. I'm sure. But Detective Martinez? Yes? Make sure he knows that Aven is cooperating fully with the prosecution. Make sure he knows she's not going to prison for him. I'll pass that along. After I hang up, I finish my drink and go to the kitchen to make dinner. Just for me, for the first time in 20 years. It's a strange feeling, cooking for one, but not entirely unpleasant. As I'm chopping vegetables, my phone buzzes one more time. Text message from Aven. I'm sorry. For everything, you deserved better. I stare at the message for a long time, then delete it without responding. She's right. I did deserve better, and now, finally, I'm going to get it. The story ends here, in my kitchen, with the sound of onions sizzling in a pan and the knowledge that justice, when it finally arrives, tastes exactly like freedom.